session number 9. Session number 10 is our last session, and then after that we'll have one revision class. What do we normally do in a revision class? We normally, we resolve questions, we ask, we resolve, have answers. We give full space to the students and participants to do whatever they would like to do with that. But of course, it has to be related to our subject matter. So we will be doing that in the revision class. But for today, let's start with the day's input, which is on module 6, which is the last module which begins today. And this is the role of building training and HR scorecards. This is from now we will get a little bit into mapping of training strategy and business strategy. We'll get a little bit into the strategy maps. And we will also start beginning talking about what ultimately, how do you assess and evaluate whether training and HR has aligned itself with business, and how do you know that doing the job it was originally set out to do. So that's what today's session is about. We don't get into HR analytics, but I do talk a lot about how do you measure, a lot of HR outcomes and training outcomes. I do believe in second semester you have an entire course on HR analytics, so I will not cover too much in detail over here. I'll just touch the tip of the iceberg because it's relevant with respect to business strategy. Ultimately, management is an interdisciplinary science. And because it's an interdisciplinary science, there's a lot of connectedness and interconnectedness and overlaps. We try to keep ourselves mutually exclusive, but that doesn't happen. There are times when there will be overlap. So today we are going to talk about training and HR scorecards. But I want to begin with a very short 4-minute film by McKinsey on the future of work after COVID-19. I did mail you the article a couple of classes ago, and that article was, based, and this movie is based on that article. So I'll just tune into the video and give me 1 minute.
Ma'am, this is Gurvinder. Sorry to interrupt. Ma'am, this is the 9th class, and we have the one last revision class. Just to
yeah, this is session 9.
Yes, ma'am. And
right.
We have only one session left, which is the revision 10th. So
okay,
we have only 10 classes altogether.
We don't have an extra revision class.
10th is the revision, ma'am. We can have like an extended version of that.
Okay.
So today, once we have this class, then we'll take a break and we'll do the last class in the first week of May.
Okay, we won't do the last class just now?
No, ma'am, just have a break because we have assignments date coming on 30th. Okay. So we'll just take a break for that.
All right. So next week we'll take a break, and the week after that, I think
it
is 1st of May. I think it'll be 1st of May. It's May Day here in Mumbai, Maharashtra Day.
So we'll do on 6th or 7th, which is following the first Sunday after 30th.
We can do the first Sunday also, right?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks for pointing it out.
Yeah, just one point for Mr. Gurvinder. Gurvinder, this Aneeta ma'am's 4th and 5th lecture, the slides are not been uploaded. Can you please look into that?
Sure, I'll check on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want information on one more thing. When are the exams going to be conducted? Are they in June or are they in July?
So I think Gurvinder has gone off right now. So you can address this question to him.
I messaged him, but there was no reply.
Ma'am, it's in July.
What time in July?
We would be announcing very soon the schedule. Just give us like a week or 10 days. It would be out.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so here's the one on the future of work.
COVID-19 has reshaped the world in ways that will endure long after the pandemic ends. Remote work is here to stay. E-commerce is soaring. Automation is accelerating. Our research indicates that the mix of available jobs will change as a result, creating more urgency for training workers for the changes ahead. More than 100 million workers in our focus countries, or 1 in 16, may need to switch occupations by 2030. Job growth will be more heavily concentrated in high-skill jobs, while middle and low-skill jobs decline. The explosion in e-commerce set off a scramble for warehouse workers that is unlikely to stop. Investment in the green economy will increase the need for wind turbine technicians. Demand for photographers may grow to address our increasingly visual ways of communicating. Aging populations in many advanced economies will increase demand for nurses, home health aides, and hearing aid technicians. Teachers and training instructors will also continue to find work over the coming decade. But the forces unleashed by COVID-19 have put other jobs at risk. Business travel is unlikely to recover quickly, and that affects flight attendants, airline mechanics, and baggage handlers. Use of self-checkout stands accelerated during the pandemic, displacing some grocery store clerks. Companies have deployed robotics to process routine paperwork, replacing office workers. We are entering an era of occupational transitions, an era that demands answers to 3 key questions. What new approaches to training can support the millions of people making these transitions? To protect the social fabric, what benefits, such as sick leave and unemployment insurance, are needed for all workers, including gig workers? Can business and government leaders come together to create solutions, not only for navigating the pandemic, but for navigating the post-pandemic world of work?
So you can see that the need for training and development professionals to change a track.
Madam, you are not audible.
Hello, can you hear me? Is it only one person?
Yes, ma'am.
So
Visible.
Very low voice.
hear me and one person can't, there's something wrong with your...
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, actually, we can
Volume
hear
is
you,
low,
but
ma'am.
your voice is low.
Volume is low, yes.
Volume is low.
Very low voice.
I can change that. There's no way for me to change that. The output volume is maximum.
Now it's better, ma'am.
Input volume is something in the slider. Is it better?
Yes,
Much-
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, now it's good.
Something better.
Yes, I got it. Is it better?
Yeah, this one is the effective one.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Down in the settings, the input volume was set on auto mode and it was showing very low. So I just switched to manual mode. I was able to figure that one out. Not bad. Okay. All right. So where were we? So this was a little short film on how things are going to change post-COVID. Of course, this was shot about a year ago, and things have not, so far been exactly perfect as per the prophecy. One of the prophecies was that airline attendants and all will find it difficult finding jobs, but today there is such a shortage of airline, air hostesses and baggage handlers, and we know the situation in the world out there. So while there were some things that were forecast during COVID, but now that we're in a post-COVID era, things have not necessarily panned out that way. But the fact still remains is that today where we are, the last 4 years has seen change like never before. The next 4 years or 5 years is going to see change like never before again, thanks to artificial intelligence. And so there's only one way to cope with this change in a manner that is, sane and logical, and that is through training. Each individual must take the initiative for staying up to date with their skills and creating the skills and learning the, ways of that new jobs will require, and also for organizations to look at how do we fill the skill gaps, because the requirements and the needs have changed so much. So that's the message I wanted to give with this 4-minute film. Back to the session today, training and HR scorecards, measuring and assessing the impact of training. This module 6, we have usually what is a business scorecard, a balance scorecard, HR. These are all the topics for this module. We will look at balance scorecard as a concept, as a starting point, not necessarily as a model, but as a way of life as to how do we create a continuous system of setting goals and evaluating them for ourselves. So we will touch a bit about what is balance scorecard, but because the word scorecard means some metric or some measure or some outcome that is results that are measured. So we'll be talking about the scorecard aspect today. And in the next class, which apparently now is the last class, there will be no extra revision class. We'll be talking about strategy maps and how do we map the business strategy with the training, and how do we create that mapping. That will be in the last class. So in module 6, these are our learning outcomes. And I want to begin with a scorecard funda. And the scorecard funda is Peter Drucker. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And I do believe this very deeply and corely in my heart. Yeah, I can see something changes are intangible, and yes, lots of things have changed in the last 25 years. Things are not the way they used to be. But I'm talking in context of organizations and everyday, day-to-day existence. There's a targets, there are goals, there are directions that we set for ourselves. And if you cannot measure it, you can't manage it. Because how do you know? Somebody will say, oh, we are much better today than we were yesterday. But how do you know? And can everybody agree? And people do agree when there's a number involved. But if it's your subjective impression that things are better today, and it's my subjective impression that things are not better, we'll end up disagreeing. So if you can measure it, you can. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. You can't improve it if you can't measure it. If you've not got a measure on something, how would you know you're improving it? So you can't improve it, and you can't agree on it either if it's not measurable. So everything today is focused on evidence-based outcomes. Every statement that you make today is got to be based in evidence and subject. There is no room now for subjective perceptions, even though they may be the truth. And even though they may be the objective truth, but as long as it's not backed by data, there will always be some question on how this is managed and how do we manage this. So that's one big funda that if you have to take away from today's session, please take away this funda. If you can't manage it, measure it, you can't manage it. So it's simple, like in a game of cricket. We can say, oh, you're a better player and I'm not a better player. But then depending on who's got better outcomes and results and who's made more runs or taken more wickets and broken more records, only that person wins. So also in business, like in cricket, you have a scorecard, no? When you play cricket, there's a scorecard that tells you how many runs, how many wickets, and lots of other data gets put on that. And now it's more and more complex data. And you still, the more the data comes, the more interesting the discussion becomes and more exciting the game is to follow. So similarly in business also, now we have moved a lot towards something called a scorecard. I entered the profession in the 1980s. And in those days, there was no computer, there was no personal computers, there were some mainframes were there. They were called mainframes. I don't see the word mainframe anymore. And there was no internet. So we used to have a system called Management Information System. And for example, in my company, we had the head office in Delhi, and it used to come from all our factories, which were spread out across 3 or 4 locations in the country. And in HR, it was my job also to receive the reports, the MIS report. So there would be a monthly report that would come, that would give a lot of data on how many new joinees, new hires, how many people left, how many people retired, how many people left, for what reason they left, any IR issues that came up, any training that was done, any, any other comments that came in, any subjective. So that typewritten report used to be received by us in the mail, and then later it used to come on fax also, when the faxes started. And we used to receive that report on the 1st or 2nd of every month. And then there would be weekly reports also. And then there would be every day, there would be phone calls with the factories to say, what's happening and to catch up with what's happening there. Otherwise, there was no way of us knowing, sitting in head office, what was happening there. So it used to be called an MIS. And just for HR, I used to have an MIS, which I had developed. And for other functions like finance functions and all, the MIS used to be even more complicated, but it was all done manually. It was called Management Information System. And we could generate reports like crazy. We had one Cardex file system, I don't know how, if you want to look up somewhere, some old video you might get on what is a Cardex file system. But that was again something I had developed. And every employee's all manpower information would be recorded on one card, and that card would be put into a filing system. And at any time, and it used to be constantly updated every year, with how much leave was taken and what increments were given and things. And it would be manually, it was all handwritten. And anytime you wanted to generate a report, we could do so by just accessing those sheets and sheets of paper, and we could create a report. So that was called the MIS. Then it was, when the computers came, it was replaced by Enterprise Resource Planning Systems, ERPs. Now it's called SAPs. And even now, beyond SAP, there is, once you've got all data point collections computerized, it's all computerized, all points wherever data is generated is computerized. HR analytics course will teach you this one. And yet not all data is relevant data. We don't necessarily need so much of information that is all collected. We just need a simple dashboard. We just need a simple dashboard that is relevant for us to take our decisions. So for example, if there are some umpires on a cricket field, they have to decide who wins and who loses a match. Automatically, there are only some data that decides the number of runs and number of overs. That's the only decision point. They don't need the rest of the data that gets collected and that gets shared. So also in business, you have a system where only some information is presented in the form of a dashboard. And that dashboard is what is then, used by management for decision making. At the same time, the dashboard is supported by backend. There's a lot more data that is supporting the dashboard, and that data is something that is something that is decided by the management what data they want to see. So how to prepare a dashboard? See, now most companies today have SAP kind of enterprise resource planning systems kind of softwares. There's a lot of data available. A dashboard is just some data that is relevant to you. I will just be giving you some examples of dashboard, Biswajit, so you will just get an example. So a dashboard presents a summary of information in a visual way to make it easy to track and understand all the company's vital parameters. So as a manager, I'm taking decisions. This is the data I need. And if I want to get into depth, I can get more background data, which is also available. And every company has their own business dashboard. In most companies, HR has their own dashboard also, which gives the vital numbers updated maybe every week, every quarter, every month. And now I believe in real-time basis also. The data keeps getting updated, and you just keep, your dashboard going. So this is something about what business scorecards are about. And the future of business scorecards is in the direction of artificial intelligence in developing algorithms to monitor and correct situations also. So when we feel that there is something going wrong, the system also gives an alarm saying that okay, there's been too much absenteeism and work is going to suffer, so we've got to do something about it. Or there's been some industrial relations problem and we've got to do something about it. Or there's been a great deal of attrition in the last 1 month. Suddenly the attrition has spiked. We need to know why it has spiked. And it might tell us some data that, okay, attrition in one department is much higher than attrition in another department. We need to understand why that attrition is happening. So these are some algorithms that will get created and are continuing to get created that will monitor situations and raise an alarm for your decision making, or even sometimes correct the situations also by themselves. So this is some examples of a business dashboard. So yeah, so somebody says that Shrikant says it is created in Microsoft Excel using macros. That's one way of doing it, but that's very, 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 very basic. Today, the SAP can generate a dashboard real time on your, on your desktop, and it's now getting even on your mobile. It's coming. So if you have your company app, so pivot table, so many, Power BI, there are so many softwares. So yeah, so this is an example of a business dashboard. Okay, so this is mostly financial data. So what is the total accounts receivable? And this can get updated on a real-time basis. So you just have one screen in your office, which is only showing the dashboard, and it keeps telling you. And the minute the variation is too much, then automatically you will know that there is something wrong. It will give an alarm. So it's something like on the stock market, you see the ticker tape, which keeps giving you the real-time data about what shares are being sold and at what price. Same way, this is also updated on a real-time basis. So total accounts receivable, accounts payable, equity ratio, debt equity, and this gets updated on a daily basis or on a real-time basis or a weekly basis. Similarly, for manufacturing, you will have data on quality, how many quality rejects happened yesterday, what was the productivity, what was the output, what was the inventory levels. You'll have real-time data that will help you take decisions. A typical business scorecard, sometimes it is animated and it's, there are multiple screens at times. There are multiple screens that tell you different data, which is important. So here you're getting, including weather, here they're getting the weather update as well, because sometimes weather is critical to your business as well. In some businesses, it's critical, not all. So this gives you a very good example of, how dashboards are giving very good, very clear, very vital information, and is done in a pictorial manner and a graphic manner, and it's animated so that it's easy to deal with, and you can see the impact of your decision right away. So if there has been a murder of a politician in Uttar Pradesh, suddenly you see your sales is dipping in Uttar Pradesh area, and that's the reason for it. So that you can take some kind of corrective action. So this is just an example.
So, ma'am, these dashboards are totally different from department to department.
Yeah, so they are business level dashboards, they're department level dashboards. HR will have their own, finance will have, manufacturing, almost every supply chain might have their own. And each one has their own as well. And suppose I've got an HR dashboard, then the HR department, the dashboard is not just about HR, it'll also have some business information in there as well. So that if I want as a CHRO, I can access dashboards of other departments as well, so that I know what's the position, as far as say sales is concerned, or as far as say debt equities, as far as our stock market market capitalization is concerned. Yeah.
Yes, so much.
Any comment, question?
All clear.
So balanced scorecard, the word scorecard actually got popularized by Robert Kaplan and David Norton, who wrote a book called Balanced Scorecard. I do know that what we were doing even before that by way of performance management was also similar to a balanced scorecard. So what it actually does is that originally it was a tool for measuring the performance of the company. So there were certain lots of parameters, and sometimes it was too much information would come in, and we didn't know exactly, okay, we are down here, we are up here, we are up here, we are moderate here, we are rising here, we are competitive here. It would be difficult to get, the complexity of data became so much, it would be difficult to get the bigger picture. So what Kaplan and Norton did, they simplified the old MISs that used to come and the old scorecards used to happen. By simplified, I meant they looked at only 4 parameters. Only 4 parameters, which were financial parameters, internal processes, customers, and learning and growth. 4 parameters. They said if you take care of these 4, then the rest of the business takes care of itself. So they looked at simplifying, and not everybody follows these 4, but mostly a lot of people follow the balanced scorecard method and say, okay, let's only look at 4 parameters and 4 kind of areas where we set goals and directions for ourselves. So it started as a measurement tool to assess performance of the company, and it soon morphed into a business strategy tool. So earlier we were only going to assess and evaluate where we are, but now we say, okay, this is where we are, and this is where we want to go as far as these same parameters are concerned. So it became a tool for developing business direction and strategy. And so there are 4 aspects here. And once you set a corporate level goal, the company level goal, these goals were then cascaded down towards all parts of the organization. And if you took the sum total of all the goals of all the employees in every department of the organization, the sum total of all of those would be the sum total of the corporate company level strategic goals as well. And this would be an exercise done every year, and sometimes even every half a year, and reviewed every half a year or every quarter as well. So we call this in many other ways also. We would, before business scorecard came in, balanced scorecard came in, we used to talk about totally aligned organizations, and the concept was there. It was just packaged and put into a good name by Kaplan and Norton. So HR scorecard is also against these 4 parameters or any other parameters apart from them. It is important that HR has a strategy aligned to business strategy, and this is translated into measurable goals for all aspects of HR. So these are some of the balanced scorecard elements. So financial scorecards, generally you'll see things like revenue, expenditure, income, cash flow, asset value, market capitalization, debt equity on a real-time basis. These are also financial goals, or growth, or compounded annual growth rate. So these are all kinds of measures that are put for financial goal setting. And for learning and growth, which is the HR aspect, employee satisfaction, turnover, skills, education, learning, development. So you can see in Kaplan and Norton's model, learning and development is a very important part of business. And I'm so glad that it was put there, because otherwise usually the learning and development function gets very ignored or marginalized and not included in business and strategic goals. But they said, no, but for a business strategy, we must have the learning, and 25% focus has to be on learning and growth. Or if people are not learning and growing, then the organization is going to be declining. Customer goals are customer satisfaction, retention, market share, brand strength, and there could be many other such goals as well. And internal processes could be supply chain, inventory, orders, resource allocation, cycle time, quality control, efficiencies, cycle times, a lot of internal processes. So HR analytics is a methodology for creating insights on how investments in human capital assets contribute to the success of generating revenue, minimizing expenses, mitigating risks, and executing strategic plan. So if your HR analytics is only throwing up data which is interesting but doesn't meet any of these purposes, then it's not doing anything great. So your HR analytics has to throw up information on these aspects: generating revenue, how much money we make, how much expenses we minimize, cost effectiveness, and how do we mitigate risks, and how do we execute strategic plans. So that is what HR scorecard should be about. You don't want data on which faculty to crack more jokes in a training program, or which faculty told more stories in a training program. You got to see which faculty achieved what learning outcomes. That is more important. HR vitals include measuring performance. These are some of the big aspects of HR analytics. How do we measure people's performance? KPIs, KRAs, goal achievements, promotion and salary decisions. These are aspects of analytics will apply here. We have performance data, we have achievement data that will help us take promotion and salary decisions. How do we understand attrition and increase retention? Is also something that analytics will teach us. Measuring employee engagement. All your Gallup surveys and your Great Places to Work surveys and employee satisfaction studies measure employee engagement. So that's also part of the HR's role to deliver on employee engagement. Measuring employee development and learning outcomes. Okay, so to what extent employees have improved on their skills and their performance, and tracking HR processes like talent acquisition, etc. Any questions so far?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Some of the key metrics that HR follows, and these are all going to be, there will be far more detail on this in your entire subject on HR analytics, but some of the key things that we do is, what is the revenue per employee? This is generic to every business. I have 100 crore turnover, how many employees? If it's 10,000 employees, is it 1 lakh employees or what? And is this increasing or is this not increasing? Is it a decreasing trend? What kind of trend is shown here? All right, so what kind of revenue per employee? Then is the cost per hire. In HR, sometimes hiring people is a very expensive proposition. First of all, it takes 3 or 4 months for a new person to completely get onboarded and start being productive to the extent that you would like to. Sometimes there's a big gap between when the previous incumbent of the job left and the new incumbent comes in. So that also leads to certain loss of productive time. And you hire people, you pay recruitment agencies, you pay Monster, you pay Naukri.com, you pay, agencies for hiring people. And then not just that, you also pay the salaries of hiring managers and hiring departments, and sometimes you're hiring large numbers. So the cost per hire is a big calculation. Many companies do that cost per hire, and then they try to reduce that cost. So if this time a cost per hire is, say, 40,000 rupees or 50,000 rupees per person we have spent, we had 100 vacancies and we spent 4 lakh of rupees on hiring. So what's the cost per hire? So how do we improve the hiring efficiencies so we don't spend so much money on hiring? Time to hire, time to fill is again another matrix. Offer acceptance rate, I made 100 offers, only 20 were accepted, then something is wrong with the offers I made. How do I improve on that? So like I said, that which can be measured can be managed and improved and can be controlled. So when, suppose your offer acceptance rate suddenly slides, there's suddenly some competitor in the market is recruiting people, and suddenly in 1 month, your offer acceptance rate has gone through the roof. If you've been tracking the metrics, you would be warned and alerted to that, and you'd be able to take some corrective action. But if you weren't tracking that and it kind of hit you late that, oh, we've lost a lot of manpower this month, why did we lose? We'll be just lamenting and we'll just be holding our heads, and we wouldn't have taken any anticipatory action to improve that figure because we didn't even know it was happening. So how do we know it's happening is when we measure it. Training expenses per employee. So while many companies have said mandatory, and many organizations say at least 2 to 3 training days per person per year is mandatory. And if any department has not achieved that 2 days of training per person per year, then they're asked why. So that is something that is pushed and that is created by HR to bring in a learning orientation in the organization. But at times, the expenses of that 2 days training can be very high. And training costs are again extremely high. You know, training expenses can go through the roof. So training expenses per employee, if we can look at ways to reduce that, that's another metric that you can track. Just to track this, each metric is not easy. You know, it sounds very easy to say, yeah, we can track training expenses per employee, but where do we get the data? Where do we get the information? What information should we include and what expenses should we not include in this? And so all that comes in. Training expenses per employee, training efficiencies, turnover attrition, absenteeism, human capital risk, cost benefit analysis. So these are some of the key measures of the HR scorecard. Any questions? Some sample HR metrics again for HR scorecard. So for example, related to absenteeism. So related to training and development, related to retention, these figures come in. Related to recruitment are these ones. Revenues, generic. So there's so many aspects of HR metrics mentioned here. So some steps to creating HR scorecard: create an HR strategy. If we have an HR strategy this year, we are going to keep our training costs, we're going to reduce our training costs by 10%. Or we've got a better budget this year, so we're going to increase our training costs by 10%, but how do we improve the efficiencies of training? All right, we've got more budget this year. So create an HR strategy map first. Identify quantifiable, measurable goals in HR that you wish to achieve. So for example, the Great Places to Work survey or employee satisfaction survey did not show great performance here in these pockets. Let's try and do something about it and improve to what level. So we set certain deliverables or certain goals that we are going to deliver by the end of the year. Then we create policies and practices that will meet those goals. Then we align the HR systems and create HR efficiencies. That's what a lot of HR people do in strategic HR. So some more big business analytics related to data is big data. Business intelligence is becoming important. Not just what I am doing. I don't want to measure just that. I also want to measure what my competition is doing. So even in HR, for example, I have an attrition rate of 20. I'm in the tech sector. I have an attrition rate of 20%. I'm still better off than Infosys, which has an attrition rate of 30% or whatever it may be. So some kind of competitive intelligence and business intelligence, sometimes obvious and sometimes gained from not very, obvious resources. Very much like detectives, sometimes consultants work to gather business intelligence. Then HR analytics, people analytics, workforce analytics. These are all names that are coming in today very big time. So this is a way to a roadmap for translating business strategy objectives into action plans. We'll be looking at closing some of the gaps over here in the next class. So high-level strategic HR goals followed by HR action plans. So I have my top-level goals. This is what I want HR to achieve. And then I create HR action plans. This is what learning and development will do. This is what talent acquisition will do. This is what the talent management part will do. And this is what employee relations aspect will do. This is what the OD department. So we split the goals there and then we create action plans for achieving those goals. Assigning clear responsibilities, hiring a strong functional team, setting firm priorities, some continuous communication happens during the year. Every Monday morning, we're going to have a huddle to discuss how we are doing on our goals and taking stock of situation. And then we assess progress. Any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, please ask.
Actually, wherever discuss about the scorecard, then we understand easily that is the just like a mirror, so that why any management take decision immediate. Just like in cricket team, then you have scorecard just like. But why it is use the balance of that scorecard? So that's why about these things we can say something, madam. I asked about the balance scorecard. Balance, what do I understand balance here with a scorecard? Actually, I want to say.
So the balance scorecard guys, they said that only 4 things are important, whereas business is far more complex than that. And there was a lot more complexities in business, but they kind of sorted it out into 4 big buckets. One was, and they simplified it, or they made it easier to understand. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I didn't quite get your question, frankly.
I think, ma'am, may I intervene?
Yes, please.
Ma'am, balanced scorecard talks about the holistic picture. The pioneering work of the David Kaplan gave the 4 perspective, which in somehow was confined to only the financial aspect.
Yeah.
But other 3 processes, that internal processes, customer as well as learning and growth, was reflected to give a holistic picture.
That's right.
To map the overall strategy.
That's right. And it was, that's why it restored some amount of balance. Because there used to be over focus on financial performance of the company. There was an over focus on financial performance of the company. And the word balanced in the balance scorecard said, no, you don't need to focus only on financials, but look at these other 3 more aspects of business if you want to take a more holistic view.
Yeah.
Right? Is that, Sanjay, what you're saying? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
But actually, I think whereas as per my experience, balance scorecard terminology is used, I think, for as per business strategy, as per product strategy. So that's why we can measure through that is our business is going right track or not actually. So as by my experience, but the researcher, behavior researcher and researcher, what can use the scorecard with balance. So that's why I want question to you because you are at the stage, then you reply very smooth and very as a researcher definition. So that's why I asked to you, madam. Yes.
Okay.
So as per business strategy, maybe any employer, any management look immediate for tech necessary decision and accordingly at business strategy. So that's why I use the balanced scorecard, I think.
So that's why you use this data to make strategic decisions. Did I improve on market share or not? So I take a decisions on, okay, now I need to improve my market share in this product. So how do I do it? And, so that's part of developing business strategies, also setting the measurable goals for yourself. Right.
Yes.
You're right. So I have a very interview today with you for the best practice showcase. Very nice session I have. It's one of the best ones that we did. One Dr. Deepak Deshpande, he's a friend of mine. He's the CHRO and Senior Vice President of Entity Net Magics. So let me just share his best practice showcase. He will give you his take on HR business partnership and training, how it manages to also align with business requirements. So very, very interesting video. But I just have one apology that the sound quality of this video is not very good. So there's a constant hum in the back. So please ignore that and try to catch up on what the words are. Words are very clear. It's not like it's unclear. There's just a humming sound, a buzzing sound in the back. So at the outset, I'm just taking a little apology for that. Hello, everybody, my students and participants of the ISCD program. Today I have for you Dr. Deepak Deshpande. He is the CHRO of NCT Magic, which is a Japan-based global organization. In India, NetMagic has about 1,500 employees. And Dr. Deshpande has been with them since the last 14 years. There is a multitude of great qualifications and expertise that Dr. Deshpande brings. I must also share with you that he's also a wonderful singer. He's got a great voice, and someday I'll share with you some of his songs. But today we are here to share some of the best practices that he has initiated in his organization. So Dr. Deshpande, shall we begin?
Sure. Good morning and good afternoon or good evening, whatever time you're watching me. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Deshpande, we are interested to know what is the general process by which you decide the training strategy for NetMagic? And how do you ensure that there's a business strategy and all activities are aligned?
Sure. That's a very interesting question. And as though it may sound cliche, but very important to this time, given that the world has changed crazy in the last months. So but I would definitely not refer to the traditional ways of identifying training needs. But what we do is more work closely with business heads. What we have done at HR, at Entity NetMagic, is we have formed HR BP teams for 3 clusters. We have what is called as business cluster, which comprises of sales, solutions, product, and also marketing and customer relationship. And these are 5 teams which comprise or called as one cluster, business cluster. Then there's something called operations cluster, which is primarily the IT operation, the facility operation, because we are in the business of data center IT infrastructure management. Right? We are India's one of the largest, largest data center now, right? And spread across 12 lakhs. You can imagine the amount of activity that happens in the background to keep these data centers alive and running. So the operations cluster. Then there is the corporate support functions like finance and HR and admin, procurement, quality, governance, risk and compliance, those kind of support functions. So this is that we have identified. My entire HR team is having a team of 6 to 7 people are assigned to each of these clusters to act as business partners. So every quarter, we have a dashboard for HR. How are we doing on attrition? How are we doing on employee connect? How are we doing in terms of training? What kind of learning is happening? How many hours these people are actually training them? What kind of certification they're getting? We have a meeting every month, a meeting, or a quarterly review with the business heads with these teams. So we present to them the hardcore numbers about how the HR and HR parameters, how these functions are performing. What are the issues? We have every month connect events. These are basically the open houses. We have probably had last 9 months have been really like almost monthly, every 2 connect meetings happen pan-India. So we categorize and do the analysis and take those inputs specific to those departments individually. And then these learning, listen, you have not spent your training budget. Hey, listen, your people have not done the online learning. They have not acquired this kind of skills. We identify what kind of courses are required to be done in consultation with the business managers. So this is way, one is it's in a real time, on a periodic review basis, our training goals change. Of course, the traditional ways of quarterly times happen. Online training happens, the training programs plan one. We have a huge partner ecosystem, IT partner, we bring in their expertise and we train, we use their faculty to train our people so that we can do well. So primarily anything and everything that we do has to be in line with the business need. This is not like these are the cookbook everybody has to attend. No. It is changing dynamically quarter after quarter. Yeah, so that's we keep the feet on the ground and go ahead.
So there is a structure and a process in place.
Yes.
Plus, there's a lot of data and analytics and metrics to process and keep track of all the events and monitor and evaluate the effectiveness.
We also tend up these meetings. We give the HRD on the HR parameters. This is where the department is rated.
Okay.
On attrition, we have a yearly goal. On training, learning, have you met your 8 mandates per year goal?
Okay.
Percentage. If you in red zone, green zone, on each of the parameters, the numbers will speak for themselves. They say, okay, you're doing well. Oh, you're doing great. No, you need to improve on this. So it's a reverse engineering that's happening. The reverse way that the data is flowing and telling him you need to work on this. Of course, HODs are also very sportive, and they take it in a proper way and help us to improve.
So there's a whole support system that is built in.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So tell us about some of your business strategy scenarios. It could be mergers and acquisitions, growth, internationalization, digitization, setting up of new units, new branches, whatever business strategy scenarios your organization has faced. And in your role as the CHRO, what were some of the adjustments that you made to align your HR and L&D efforts to fit into such new strategic directives?
Really well to do this question. Maybe I'm going more to answer that, because the perception about M&D totally changed for us 9 months ago in March, May of March. Then they're put to work from home. We have annually for these 1,500 employees and other 1,200 contract employees, we clock close to about 60,000 hours of training year on year. Training and online training was not so much then, but a lot of that classroom training is 60,000, close to 58,000 per year. That's what we used to clock. But this year, COVID, you will be surprised to know, Aneeta, that of course we have appropriate training budgets and in place, a lot of certification happened. But suddenly, because of COVID, the focus shifted from classroom training to online. Luckily for us, we had already by then signed up for Udemy. Udemy is a great online learning platform. Likewise, all global companies of NTT are signed up with something called Decreed. These are the two platforms we use it generously, and we have taken those licenses, assigned them to each department basis the number of headcount that is there, right? And their training needs, what is the record in the past basis that we allocated those many licenses to these people. Not everybody gets licensed by default, because when you get something like that, you will not really value it. So we said, hey, listen, if you have 100 employees in the department, you will have about 8 to 10 licenses, and they need to be rotated like this. We have assigned training leaders. I mean, they're basically department leaders as a training, heads or leads there to monitor this. We give them the data. Listen, your team is not doing there. So there's a lot of emphasis on online training. Whether it is Decreed, whether it is Udemy, we have already made a laundry list of what are the certifications basis the role, each person's role. For this role, you need to have these certifications available online, free of cost. You can do this here. And they're given timelines. And we are monitoring week-to-week basis, and we are publishing that data. You'll be surprised, in the first 2-3 months itself, we had crossed 30,000 hours of online learning.
Within the lockdown period.
Yeah, 30,000 first 3 months. Now we have already overachieved our yearly goals and everything. Right? It's not that everybody is only doing training. They're all done with purpose. In the corporate induction program, the other engagement program that happen online, everything is going online.
So you partnered with Udemy and
yes.
For the technical part of the training.
Technical part of it. Degree covers around 3,500 plus courses. You can imagine the diversity of courses that are there. It is for HR, admin, finance, sales, you name it, everything on earth. Even beautician, how to sing also is there. Okay. So we are using that. And then we have training L&D ambassadors from the functions we have identified. Every department, we have 2-3 people. They go to the trainer program. Right? These people come and also conduct sessions for us. We answer through certain programs, key talent program, also a high performance program. All these programs we do that.
So if you were to share with us one single best practice in developing and executing training, evaluation of training, what would that one single best practice be?
So best is, I think, any L&D department or any, in fact, matter, any department, more so HR, they need to be great listeners. Great listeners. They need to be good observers. They need to be very, very on the field. They cannot be sitting in cabins and rooms and just they're on theory. We must do this. We must do that. It won't work. You need to be on the field. You need to talk to your employees. You need to talk. You have employee connectivity. A lot of inputs. You need to talk to the next in line leaders in departments and the HODs. Even in exit interviews, you get a lot of insights, and you should connect each of them. Where is this coming from? What are the problems in the company? These HRBP meetings are the testimony. These are our, should I say, a source of a lot of insights, whether it is learning, when a new intervention is required, So basis that we identify, for instance, if sales is not happening, if we are not able to convert, there is some problem. So we need to really sit with those team and why are we not able to make this sale through? What has gone wrong? Either the product is not well, or the product assimilation has not happened, or the product, the way it is presented has not happened, or we have not done a good job in terms of preparing for the case and presenting it to the customer, or we should have done something else. So there is a lot of root cause analysis for every feedback, especially improvement or negative feedback that comes up. Also, what is working, what is positive, what should we do more? So having your ears to the ground is number first. We have done this more because we had to do this time. Like for instance, a simple example is earlier we used to have 6-hour training program per every day, right? I mean, it's a 1-day classroom program, not 4 hours or 6 hours. Now we said everything should be for 2 hours, not more than, because he has got also to work. And all you can't be just sitting and expecting people to listen to one section. Right? So we create a small module. So there are a lot of innovation happen when it comes to L&D. So the example is, be like a Roman while in Rome, you know. So one size does not fit all. So we have changed the way we deliver. You know, somebody likes coffee in a ceramic, this thing we give in there. Somebody likes, I'm from South India, I need in a steel glass, small one, because that was somebody likes, matti wala isme chahiye, ya to isme le. So it is customizing. It cannot be one simple rule. Idea is to sit with, you need to be a partner to your HOD.
That's true.
Customers. You cannot be lecturing him, talk about your HR jargon, he will say, take a walk.
The thought that you suggested in the beginning is having HRBP for every cluster.
Yes, yeah.
Those are the way where you get your ear to the ground and you're able to adjust accordingly.
Basically, I want to clarify one thing. This HRBP word is a very abused word. It is understood in a particular way. Probably that is the right definition. But for me or for us at NetMagic, HRBP, Entity NetMagic, HRBP is I'm actually working with the business leader. I'm not doing the typical operational roles, performance improvement, performance management, any kind of, compensation related queries, something else. No. We are asking about actually what are the business issues we are facing. This is the HR dashboard. I'm presenting it to you. This is pertaining to your department. This is what we are seeing. This is what is available to you. And this is what we recommend we would like you to take up. And we will partner with you. So I'm a co-creator with you there.
Very good. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So you're not like pure HR, you're only business.
The HRBP teams are hardcore like that. There's a plumber, there's a carpenter, there is a tailor, there is a nutritionist, there's everybody in this HR team. HRBP team for each cluster.
Wonderful. Someday we'll get into that one too. But right now, very briefly, if you can share with us, you told us about partnering with Udemy and degree in Miracle training efforts post-lockdown. So, but what are some of the other adjustments you made in both HR and in L&D, post-COVID? Some innovative something,
So basically, I think evaluating training effectiveness has been one of the most challenging tasks for us. For many of us, I think. Even today, I despite also many long years and whatever I have gathered and I go with years of experience, I still find it is a big challenge. Number one. Number two, the motivation levels of individuals are very different, very diverse. Third, learning, the way people learn and their motivation to learn is also very scattered, is very different. So therefore, one is what we have done is we have targeted individuals, how learning can really help. Instead of taking the onus whether learning is effective or not, we put the onus on the training. They said, you are investing your 2 hours time or 4 hours time. You are the best to judge what you have learned or not learned. Don't come and sit here and waste your time. You have come here because your manager has nominated you, therefore you may be here. But when you are here, please be here, see what is the delta when you're going back. And that delta, is it helping you to become a better employee in that role or not? That's the question you have to ask. And who will justify, who will confirm this that you have become better is your output. Because you're going to see whatever you're taking 6 hours or 16 days to do now, you're doing it in 2 days. Secondly, because of the COVID, now they are not working, teams across the next, bench make beta, you can ask him for help. Now there's nobody. You are a one-man army sitting in a home, and you have to be efficient. You have to be an island of efficiency. You need to know the subject. You need to know how to do things. You need to be a good influencer. You need to talk to people virtually and get your things done. People will not give you days and months to complete a job. When a job is assigned, you should be able to give the output. So therefore, you are learning. The quotient of learning need to really go up. So therefore, we have created that lot of awareness by beating on this particular part. Plus, also we talk to the HODs and the managers. Whom do you want to nominate is your decision. Don't nominate somebody because he's not having work. Don't nominate somebody who is already good at because you want to please him. No, you nominate them, but nominate people judiciously who need, there is a need for them to learn. And this is the observed behavior on the job. And then give them the feedback. Please, I think you're doing better. Did this program help you? Or HR is taking you? Please don't be afraid of asking this question to the trainee whenever you're nominating. When he comes back, you ask him, did it help? Do you think you can do it? Even if you ask an employee, hey, you attended this program, was it of value? Do you think your output is, can I expect some good performance from you after this training program? If you ask this, the person's orientation while sitting in the class will change. So from that perspective, we are approaching this and it has really paid dividends, trust me. Basically getting all the stakeholders into the game and asking, tera ye responsibility hai bhaiya, tumko ye puchna hai. Trainee ko bhi bataya bhaiya, tere ko bulaya hai to aapko jana hai, ye karna hai, ye isse, because you need to be like a sponge, you need to be a good absorber.
So excellent, lots of interesting bites of learning for our participants, because our participants are mostly going to be training managers or trainers in organizations, and for them these kind of inputs definitely help. So on behalf of ISCD and on behalf of all the participants of the postgraduate diploma, I'd like to say thank you very much, Dr. Deepak Deshpande. And
I want to say one thing from my side, Aneeta.
Please.
I'm sure a lot of HR professionals and other professionals will be listening to me. Training has been the only, opportunity I got. This is the story of 2000 when everybody was terminating. So I had the misfortune to terminate, a lot of employees during the early 2000. So everybody used to be scared of running away from, when I'm walking to the Deepak will get terminate karega, after 5 o'clock is calling means he will terminate. So they used to avoid. There's a lot of fear in the company.
It was the Y2K time.
Yeah. So we said, this is bad, so we need to do something. So every Friday has to have a training program. On some training pretext or anything, I'll get those 30, 40 people in turns and then have a training program. 1 full year I did that training program. That had changed my life. Training is a noble profession. It is a transformative role. It is not a transactional role. So anybody who is aspiring to be a fact trainer, remember the responsibility, remember the transformation you can bring. And also training is not some gyan sitting in, your big lounge chairs and, sipping coffee and watching TV. No, you have to be hands-on. You have to speak through experience. You need to be on the ground, on the field. It cannot be purely advisory. It's a noble profession. If you look at it like that, you will find a lot of growth. I'm personally benefited as a trainer. And that is where I have come here today. And whatever little growth has happened, primarily roots are embedded there. So if you're already training managers, you are lucky, you can go places. If you're aspiring, it's a great start. I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. That was a very inspiring statement, the last one. I'm really, really so thankful for you to bring that insight to our participants. Because yes,
Also, I enrolled for ISCD 15 years old, I could not complete. So you can say, whatever you are, but you are not an ISCD diploma. I take it with this.
So whatever goes around comes around. I mean, you also began somewhere with an ISCD diploma.
Yes.
Now you are taking this best practice session with them. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Really, really.
Thank you for the opportunity and this window to share my thoughts with your students and you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Great to connect with you.
So what goes around comes around. Is one of my favorite interviews that I did for, I've done almost 60, 70 of such interviews. During the pandemic, there was nothing else to do. So every time I would take a session or a training or anything, I would plug in an interview to make it more interactive. So what are your thoughts and questions? Jagannath, I can see your hand is raised.
Yes, madam. Very pertinent point Dr. Deshpande has made about the accountability of the learner after completion of the training, and also very important point he made. So no, you have to go for training and don't nominate people because they don't have any work in office. Typically, this happens in public sector organizations that we find कि यहाँ पे बड़ा बोझ बन गया है तो उसको ट्रेनिंग में भेज दो. But my question is about the accountability, how to measure it, because early, suppose the training is of a qualitative kind of a thing, or the training which I impart to my agents, maybe refresher training or induction training, and then in terms of business, obviously, because the revenue is the important thing on which the organization grows. So how I should account for it, whether the revenue or quantity? Thank you very much.
So this is actually a subject we take up in the next class, in the 10th session. It's called how do we assess the impact of training or evaluation of training efforts. There is a very interesting Kirkpatrick model which talks about evaluation at 4 different levels. And there's a 5th level also. And many companies have adopted this way of. So the first level is the impact. Okay, the immediate impact of your, first level is learning, So learning is the immediate learning that people have taken, absorbed as a result of the training. So the reaction in terms of, there is reaction, learning, impact, and results. There are 4 levels at which we measure the effectiveness of training. And at the reaction level, we take feedback at the end of every program. What did you learn? What kind of actions you're going to implement? Then we look at the learning level. In your annual reviews, we will put it down in your annual appraisal. This was the training you attended, to what extent you benefited from that. And then at the impact level, we look at an organizational level. Has it really made a change or not? Many companies do that as analysis. And then at the results level, if you look at Bidisha Banerjee's interview and the showcase, best practice showcase we did with her for Wellspun Group, she spoke about 2 years later, the results started coming in of the training that they've done to change that, to become more customer oriented. So the results came 2 years later. So there's also the results level. So there are 4 levels. This is many companies are implementing, and they are consciously looking at these 4 levels and developing ways in which to measure those. So I hope that answers your question. This is something we'll be covering in the next class also. Yes, Avani, you have a question?
I had a question. I just wanted to ask, what are the other models of evaluation? Like Kirkpatrick model, I have been listening for long that this is the best model for evaluation. What are the other models of evaluation?
There is something that they call the return on investment, ROI on training.
Okay.
So that's a very numerical and financial view that gets taken also. So this is the money that was spent on training. And then they find ways to quantify the benefits. That also I'll be taking in the next class.
Okay.
So that is called the ROI on training. Then there are some companies that do like a customer satisfaction index is done for marketing department. So
that I think like that customer satisfaction wala part comes in the reaction of Kirkpatrick model.
No. I'm just saying many for marketing. Let me complete. For marketing department, we'll measure customer satisfaction index every year, year on year. Same way, in HR, you will measure employee engagement every year, year on year, or maybe every alternate year, because every year doesn't make sense in many companies. Same way, many companies also come out with a training effectiveness index. Now, this has been our training effectiveness or our training efficiency. And that takes the full costs and benefits of all kinds, not just financial, and then puts that figure together. And then every year on year, they track that figure to see has it improved or has it not improved. So many companies do like a training effectiveness index also. So there are ways that, but by and large, everybody who's professionally qualified trainer, will start with the Kirkpatrick model because that's the one that makes the most sense.
Yes.
Because you could
From
get
long,
excellent
it's
feedback.
only
You could get excellent feedback about a training program, but did it really result in some kind of learning or not? You
okay.
could,
Thank you.
thanks a lot, Avni. So I'm going to be reaction learning behavior results here. So these are the 4 levels, Vineeta. Read and understand the situation judgment test handout, which I will be sending out. This is by the Society for Human Resources Management, SHRM as we know it. There is a test, there's a scenario that's given, a situation, and there are multiple choice questions at the end of it. So there are 3 questions in that, only 3 cases, like 3 scenarios that are given. And please answer these 3 questions as clearly as possible and come prepared for a discussion in small groups. Right? That is the homework for next week. And some handout today will be just the same as homework assignment, and references HR scorecard. And that's all for today. Anybody has any questions? Any thoughts to share? I wanted to share that, Gurvinder has just, I was exchanging messages with him while we were discussing. Apparently next week we cannot have a class because assignment deadline is happening. And the assignment deadline is 30th of April, and 30th of April is the next Sunday. So we will have to do our next class on 7th of May, but I'm not in town 7th of May. I already have something planned. So we will have our last and final class only on 14th of May. I hope that works for everybody. There's no other option but to have to wait for 2 weeks to complete the course. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Please make a note of it and circulate this also. The last session will be only on 14th of May as normal schedule, 4 p.m. on Sunday. Right? Jagannath, you have something to say?
Yeah, one more favor, madam. If possible, can you share the very preliminary scorecards for this? I want to implement it in my office for training purpose. So if you can provide some format, maybe very preliminary or basic kind of a thing, sample form, which I may be able to implement in my area. Thank you very much.
Sample form.
Format of that scorecard.
Madam,
maybe sample form or any such thing.
I'll have to do the same research that you would have to do then to discover that. I mean, I can ask for my clients to send some live, formats, but I don't know how much time I'll have to do that. Yeah, I can ask some of my clients. You can ask some of the people in your WhatsApp group to share the HR scorecards that are used in their companies.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
I'm not going to claim to answer your request because then it will take up a lot of my time to just get that, organize that. Yes, Oindila, have any question?
I was just asking the same as Jagannathji has mentioned. I come from a manufacturing unit, so I also wanted to establish some training scorecard on soft skill training. So regarding that, can you please guide me something so that I can make it up, a framework?
So again, I will suggest you just check around in your network and get some data from what other companies are doing. And maybe, you'd like to share that around also what you're doing, right? I mean, I do it for you, but it's my own consulting work that I do for clients to help them assess training impacts and things. So I don't know if I can put together a case study for you, especially.
Okay, madam. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. But it's generally out of the scope of what I'm saying.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody. I will see you on 14th of May. I wish you good luck for all your assignment submissions and do a great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.